Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux, Mike Beer here, looking at the Thursday race of the day. It's race number 7 at Churchill Downs. It's on the grass, a mile turf event for 3-year-olds and upward, and a nice purse here of $141,000 for this allowance optional claiming event. And Mike, it's a good field. I mean, there's some quality in here, horses that probably will be back in stakes waters in no time, and probably using this as a launching point to get their season underway. But kind of looking at the morning line, a couple of them at shorter prices, that being Northern Invader, as well as the 10 here for Helen Pitts.
It's a really good race here. It is like a stakes race. Most of these horses have already run in stakes company. There's a bunch of horses that have already won stakes races in here. This is a really, really good race. I have no problem with the two horses that are the shortest prices on the morning line. They're both really, really good, and they can both win here.
We'll take a look at the time form U.S. pace projections for this mile event, and nothing crazy here. It looks like the 8 Northern Invader and the 10 Hershey might be part of the pace, but also Higgins Boat, who does draw the outside. I think this horse is going to be a little bit more involved than maybe the time form and pace projection establishes here for a couple of reasons. I think he has to get good position going into the first turn, but look at the splits last time out. He was not backing out of that mile and an eighth event where they went 45 and 4 to the half.
Yeah, they went way too fast in that race last time. And if you go watch the replay, but the race totally fell apart at the end and went to closers. So, yeah, Higgins Boat, I'm with you, Ashley. I mean, it just feels like he wants to be forward anyway. I don't think he's a horse who needs to lead, by the way. He's a very handy kind of horse. So if he can sort of clear some of that traffic to his inside and drop over, that would really work for him. But it's unfortunate. In 2 of his last 3 races, he's had, the far outside post, and he's got the far outside post again.
Late pace flag attached to the 3. What say B here? 2 for 2 on the turf at Churchill Downs, but certainly a closer who will need some pace help. We'll jump right into it, though, with the number 1 Skyro, now in the barn of Joe Sharp, previously trained by Marty Drexler, who I don't know how you assess the Appleton and then the most recent start at Churchill. I think they're okay performances. You got to realize this horse was 30-some to 1 in them, jumping up in class based on what we had seen in those last starts. And actually don't hate the effort last time out. I thought he ran okay all in all.
I did too. There's nothing wrong with that performance in a really tough spot for him. Probably ran even better than it looks 2 starts back as well. He had a really tough trip in the Appleton, a race where you didn't really want to be closing. And not only was he trying to close, he was very wide in that race. I thought that was an underrated performance. And he's going to be a good price in here. So I'm not going to knock this horse. The flip side of that is I also kind of feel like he's better on synthetic than he is on turf.
The 2 West Hollywood, Brad Cox, Louis Sias teaming up here for connections that obviously do well together. 4 to 1 on the morning line. I just have reservations about this colt based on what we've seen. I don't feel like they've really figured him out. Sometimes they've been able to get him to close. Most recently, they put him on the front. And like you said, they went way too quick. So maybe you draw a line through his last out effort. He's probably better rating, in my opinion, based on the Saranac and the effort 4 back. But I still don't love his effort 2 back.
Yeah, I mean, unless you just want to, I'm with you on that. He didn't run well off the layoff at Keelan, and I guess you could just say he needed one off the layoff. I don't know what other excuse there could be for that. He has a pretty big excuse for that last one. They just went way too fast in that race, and he was under pressure all the way. So maybe that's a good sign for this horse, actually, that he actually did take a step forward last time, even though it may not look like it on paper. I just don't know how good he actually is. And I know he won the Saranac at Saratoga last summer, but that was a race where I'm not sure that he was actually going to win there. There was a spill on the stretch of that race, and it sort of took out a bunch of horses that were in front of him, and he was the one who avoided all the trouble and got the job done. So I just don't know how good he is, and it's not like he's going to be a great price in here.
The 3, what say the 0 for 2 so far this year, but his return to the races after having a couple of months off at the fairgrounds, I thought was very good in the grade 3 event. I don't think he got pace help, and then next time out, he certainly didn't get pace help once again. They almost went identical in terms of the time. We're talking about a very small difference. And I think he had to try to work his way out through traffic last time out. But I just don't think with the way the race played out that it suited him. And obviously he does have talent. We saw that last year, a very handy horse that if for some reason they go slow, he can be closer to it. But that's about the only way he's close, right? Because he is a deep closer.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have the same take on this horse. I mean, I think you want to be a little lenient for the last 2 starts at fairgrounds that just didn't set up great for him. If I'm being honest, I actually really liked him in the fairgrounds 2 starts back. And yeah, he probably didn't have the right setup there. I was still a little disappointed in his performance. He had no chance last time. I like this spot better for him. Do you think a mile is maybe a little short of his best? The longer I looked at him, I like him in here. I think he can win this race. The longer I looked at him, though, kind of feel like maybe a little bit longer is better for this horse.
I think when you look at his summer campaign last year, probably wants to go longer. They obviously used a mile and an eighth, those races. Maybe it's a mile and a 16th. I still think he can win at a mile, but I agree with you. I think probably most effective a mile and an eighth. They aren't going as quick early. He can typically be just a couple of lengths closer to it, and he still shows the late turn of foot. It just depends. I think there's certain places where a mile might be great for him because they usually are cooking on the front end.
Right.
The 4 tall boy, this one for Doug O'Neill, has 2 starts after the long layoff and might have needed the first race. I thought he ran well at Churchill in the following race. He got the pace help that he needed, though, to finish third after being dead last for a majority of the race. And I think he's worth talking about if you think the pace is hot. He's still going to need to take a step forward, though.
Yeah, that's how I looked at him too. I just don't think his best race, or the best race he's run to this point, I don't think it's going to be good enough against this field. This is a really good field. I'm also, at least a little concerned that he's come back from the layoff this year and he has no speed anymore. I mean, this is a horse who's been far back in the field in both of his starts. And yes, he was along for third last time. He finished ahead of a bunch of these horses, but we've already talked about that race. They were dueling up front. That race set up perfectly for this horse, and he just wasn't good enough to get there.
The 5 Miranda Wrights, 15-1 on the morning line for Mark Casse, Gary Barber, a horse that it's interesting as you go back through his past performances. I feel like he's sort of the case of I need a race off the layoff. He usually takes a step forward in the second one, and maybe that's going to be the case in this race on Thursday. It's tough to assess the race at Churchill. When we're talking about the fractions in terms of that. Yes, the closers did well. West Hollywood hung around for 5th. I feel like the horses that we're chasing were sort of at a disadvantage, but this one was, had 2 beaten early on and wasn't able to close like the others, which makes me just wonder if he's a cut below.
Yeah, me too. He didn't really do enough for me in that race that set up really well for him. He was off the layoff too. It was a pretty long one. So, maybe he just wasn't fully cranked up for it. And, maybe he'll run better here. But I even go back to some of his other races, and I know he's been competitive. I just don't think those races are even good enough. He was in a kind of a photo here last May with What Say Thee, but to me that race isn't as close as the final margin suggests there. What Say Thee I thought was clearly best in that race.
The 6 Noise is off 15-1 on the morning line. This one for Paulo Lobo. Horse is a little intriguing. I think if you can find excuses for the last 2, one of which I think the turf mile just draw a line through it based on what he saw, it's the races 3 back and even 5 and 6 where he was competitive against the Northern Invaders, the What Say Thees, and he was only 3/4 a length behind Goliad, who can be very very tough, especially with his forward running style. So I think if you think that Noise is off can rekindle last year's form, he's a big player here at a big price.
Yeah, that's how I looked at him too. I'm not totally convinced he's good enough. If everybody shows up here and runs their good race, it might not matter. Noise is off just might not be good enough, but he's not that far off these horses. And I just really appreciate his versatility as far as running style goes. I mean, he's got speed, but this is not a horse who needs to be on the lead. He could really fall into a nice trip in this race if they go fast in front of him.
The 7 Son of a Birch for Tom Morley, a horse that obviously was a closing sprinter for a vast majority of his career to date. And then they tried him going a mile last time out and he split the field. He was a big price in there, took no love on the tote board. It looks like when I assess him that they're trying to give him one more shot going long to see if this is really what he wants to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a big fan of this horse. I love Son of a Birch. He's probably better sprinting. They stretched him out. They stretched him back out last time at Ackworth. I thought he was super interested in that race at a big price, and I bet him. And I don't know, just didn't think that he ran that well. And this race is tougher than that one.
The 8 Northern Invader in some ways might be the class of the field based on the resume. Obviously was 4th in the Maker's Mark mile earlier this year and was competitive behind a Running Bee in the Tampa Bay, a horse that the connections have obviously always thought very highly of. He's been able to win in some tough spots. How do you assess his performance last time out, knowing that, the horses that finished in front of him, I just think are more talented?
Yeah, he just can't beat those horses. I agree with you. To me, he's just not that good. To me, he's better than he looks on paper. And he's better on paper. He's better on paper than he actually is on the track. I just don't like his races. I'm not going to be too hard on him for the last race because he's not a grade 1 horse. But I didn't even like his race at Tampa off the layoff that much, where he just sort of got clear on the lead. I know he was sort of moving right along in there, but he was clear on the lead and he got run down late. To me, this horse is just a little bit overrated. And if he's going to be the favorite in here, I'll bet somebody else.
The 9 out of deductions, another price in here, 15-1 on the morning line, a horse that's 0 for 2 at Churchill Downs. And we won't take a look at the most recent performance. We'll go 2 back to the race at Keeneland. And I think he's interesting here at a price for the reason that we've talked about some sort of maybe potential pace setters or horses closing from off of it. I think he's tactical. I think he's best 3 or 4 lengths off of it early. I think he's more of a miler than maybe a mile and a 16th or a mile and an ace suggest. And he's going to dead heat here for second with Smoky Mandate. But I think, looking at this performance and how he closes, this was a good effort.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all that stuff that you said about him earlier as well. I like him going a little bit shorter. And, in that most recent start at Churchill, he was quietly really close to that fast pace. And he only got tired at the very end of that race. I thought that was sort of an underrated performance for this horse.
The 10 Hershey here for Helen Pitts, a very fun horse to watch. Just 3 for 6 now in the career, only 1 out of the money finish. And we take a look at his return to the races last time out. And another one, he's probably a little bit more tactical than the horse that we just talked about out of deductions. He wants to have maybe a target or 2 in front of him, and he'll always try to mow them down. And I just think in this group, he ended up being much the best. The fractions were quick early on, and he wasn't that far off of it and just motors by everyone.
Yes, had a perfect trip in this race, but he also wins it really easily. I don't know. This horse shaped with a lot of potential last year. I think he's got stakes in his future again, but they're going to give him another allowance race here. This is a stiffer test than that last one was, but I think he can go with these horses. He took a nice step forward in that race last time. He improves again. He could easily beat this field.
And then rounding out the field is the 11 Higgins Boat, who we talked about could be part of the pace. You said doesn't necessarily need the lead, and I thought his race 3 back was quite good being part of the pace. I know it was slow, but if that were to happen, he could be effective. And I don't actually even hate his effort 2 back. I thought he ran okay. It was a big price in that event, the grade 2. I just, would have to draw a line through his last out. We've talked about that. And they're either horses that you like in that event, or they're horses that you just have to kind of disregard that performance and look kind of to the earlier races.
Yeah, another one. That last one, he was just involved on a wicked pace in there. So I'm going to be lenient for that one. His races 2 and 3 back at Fairgrounds, I don't love them just because he was involved. Those paces weren't that fast, and he was right up close. I mean, the race 2 back, he's up on the lead with an 86-1 shot who won the race. And this horse got tired. But I also feel like, Ashley, he's the one out of anybody in this field. He's the one who I think dropping back to a mile, I think it really works for him. I think 3 9-furlong races in a row. I don't really think he wants to go that far. I think he's better going this distance.
And I think it's worth noting, too, you've talked about the cutback, even his race at a mile and a 16th in late November, where he won that pretty nicely. Look at who was behind him. Smoky Mandate, who we just saw in that auto deductions replay, right, was able to dead heat with that one. That race, Higgins Boat was sitting the trip, was not on the lead, and seemed to be more effective. So maybe that'll be the key, too, on the cutback, to just have him sit. We'll see what they end up doing with the outside post. But a field of 11 for the Thursday race of the day. Don't forget race 7 at Churchill means you get free past performances on the DRF website. And time for top picks. It's a very competitive betting event. I think this is one that we both will get involved in. And you want the price in the top spot, the 6 Noises Off.
Yeah, I thought this was the kind of race where you can sort of search around maybe and look for a little bit of a better price. I'm a big Hershey fan, and I have him in there. He'll be one of the favorites in there, but I really like that horse. The other favorite, Northern Invader, I don't like at all. So I don't really want him anywhere near the top spot. I just wanted to search for a little bit of a better price. I'm hoping that Noises Off can fall into the right kind of a trip here and then run his A race.
So we use the 3, 8, and the 10 somewhere in our top picks. I go to the 10 on top. I think we talked about his trip, his running style. I still think he'll need to take a little bit of a step forward. I think he's going to get tested a little bit more than he did last time out, but maybe it comes down to a strip. I think my big price, I used in the 3rd spot. Auto deductions was sort of my Noises Off. When I looked at those performances, I could find somewhat of an excuse last time out, and I think he's going to be, really good value in here. And I loved the effort 2 and 3 back, especially the replay that we showed. So 6, 10, 3, 8 for Mike, 10, 8, 9, 3 for me. Race 7 at Churchill this Thursday. Good luck.